the void was unnervingly still. From the observation deck of the Ketheri Ascendancy Dreadnought Calthus Prime, Commander Tarek Vin stared into that stillness, his mandibles grinding softly, an old habit when something didn't sit right. Beyond the reinforced viewport, a hulking silhouette floated against the backdrop of distant stars. It was a ship, yes, but not like any ship Tarek had ever seen. Its armored hull was jagged, angular, covered in scars from long-forgotten battles. Vast sections of plating were blackened as if scorched by the fires of suns themselves. And yet, impossibly, it remained intact, silent, adrift, but intact. The Calthus Prime's bridge was a hive of quiet activity. Officers moved at their stations, their voices low, as though they feared waking the thing that hung before them. Science Officer Ralph broke the silence. Her crest twitched uneasily as she delivered her report. "Commander, our scans confirm this is a human vessel. No active transponder. No IFF beacon. Reactor is cold, but..." Tarek's golden eyes shifted toward her. "But what?" Ralph hesitated. "There's an energy field still active, faint, encrypted, but persistent. We cannot decode it." Tarek turned back toward the viewport, mandibles clicking softly. Humans were trouble. They had been since the day they first burst into the galactic stage, young, brash, aggressive. A species that refused to bow even to the Ascendancy's might. And yet this ship, this ghost, was different. No human registry matched its design. It was far larger than any ship they had catalogued, perhaps longer even than the Calthus Prime itself. Its silhouette suggested not a vessel of exploration or diplomacy, but of war. A predator's shape. "What is its name?" Tarek asked. "No name markings remain," Ralph replied. "But the hull designation reads UNSFRETR00X. We believe it once bore the name Retribution." The word was unfamiliar, but its translation sent an instinctive chill through Tarek's spine. "Board it," he ordered at last, voice firm. "Retrieve any data. If this is a human prototype, we must know its purpose." Moments later, the Ascendancy's boarding craft were launched, 6 dark shapes gliding silently across the void toward the derelict. The crew of the Calthus Prime watched in tense silence as the shuttles latched onto the warship's scarred hull. Inside the Retribution, the first team stepped cautiously through the airlock. The interior was dark, the atmosphere thin but breathable, an unexpected detail that made every one of them uneasy. "Lights on," the team leader hissed. Their helmet lamps cut through the blackness, revealing corridors lined with dormant consoles, strange angular architecture, and bulkheads etched with human markings. "It's like walking into a tomb," one of them muttered over calms. The team advanced deeper. Their boots echoed faintly, a sound that seemed far too loud in the stillness. And then a noise. A faint hiss, like a breath being drawn in. "Control, we're hearing." The transmission cut abruptly into static. On the Calthus Prime's bridge, Ralpha's claws danced across her console. "Team 1, report." "Nothing." "Team 2, proceed," Tarek ordered, his voice tighter now. The second team entered. For several tense minutes, their feet remained steady as they followed the first team's path. Then a scream pierced the comms, high-pitched, abruptly silenced. "Team 2, status." Ralph snapped. The channel dissolved into garbled static. And then, the ship woke. It began with a single sound, a deep metallic thrum that reverberated through the void. On the Calthus Prime, every console lit up with warning icons. "Energy spike." Ralph shouted. "Massive surge from the derelict." "No, not a derelict, it's powering up." "Impossible." Tarek snarled. But even as he said it, the evidence played out before their eyes. One by one, blinding lights ignited along the Retribution's hull, not a slow restoration of power, but a sudden, violent resurrection. Its engines roared awake, spilling blue-white fire into the void. Its weapons arrays rotated into position with mechanical precision, as though the ship were aware of them. And then, over every comm channel, a voice spoke. It was human. Cold. Male. "This vessel is UNSF Retribution. Unauthorized boarding detected. Retaliation protocol engaged. On the bridge of the Calthus Prime, a heavy silence fell. Every officer turned toward Tarek, waiting for his command. For the first time in his long career, Tarek then felt true fear. "Raise shields," he barked. The words had barely left his mouth before the Retribution moved. It was fast, impossibly fast for a ship of its size. In less than a heartbeat, it rotated in place, bringing its massive forward batteries to bear on the Calthus Prime. The void lit up with the glow of its charging weapons. And Tarek realized, far too late, that they hadn't discovered a derelict relic. They had awakened something far worse. Something built for war. For a moment, the void was filled with nothing but light. The Retribution's hull burned against the stars, its running lights glowing like the eyes of some ancient beast dragged from its slumber. The ship's massive engines came alive with a deafening roar that could almost be felt even across the vacuum of space, a vibration that reached into the bones of every Ketheri aboard the Calthus Prime. On the Ascendancy Dreadnought's bridge, alarms screamed and sensor feeds spiked with readings none of their computers could interpret. "It's fully online," Ralph shouted over the cacophony. "All systems active, weapons, shields, power core." "Commander, this isn't a derelict. It's a predator," Tarek finished grimly. Through the viewport, they saw the warship rotate with predatory precision, its colossal forward batteries locking directly onto them. "Shields to maximum," Tarek bellowed. Even as he spoke, the Retribution fired. The first salvo came in blinding flashes, 3 lances of superheated energy that crossed the void faster than thought. The nearest Ascendancy escort frigate never stood a chance. The beams punched through its shields as though they weren't even there, slicing straight through its hull. The ship blossomed into a silent, fiery explosion, debris scattering like shrapnel across the stars. Gasps echoed across the Calthus Prime's bridge. "They destroyed it with 3 shots," Ralph whispered in disbelief. Tarek forced himself to focus. "Return fire. Now." Their plasma batteries spat streams of incandescent death toward the human warship, but what happened next turned fear into dread. The Retribution's shield shimmered once, twice, like ripples across a pond, and then the plasma simply bent around the ship, dissipating harmlessly into space. "It's adapting," Ralph said, her voice almost a hiss. "It just recalibrated its shield frequency mid-impact." Before Tarek could respond, the Retribution struck again, this time with its railguns. Slugs the size of dropships screamed through the void, slamming into another frigate and tearing it apart in a burst of molten wreckage. And deep inside the warship, a lone man opened his eyes. Captain Mason Hale sucked in a sharp breath as the cryopod hissed and released its mist. His chest felt tight, his limbs stiff from centuries of suspension, but his mind was sharp, his training rising to the surface like muscle memory. "Status," he rasped. The ship's AI, Echo, responded in a calm, synthetic voice that echoed through the cryobay. "Captain Hale. You have been revived per contingency Omega. Unauthorized Xeno boarding attempt detected. Boarders neutralized. External hostiles engaged." Mason swung his legs over the side of the pod and forced himself upright. His muscles burned, but there was no time to waste. He grabbed his uniform jacket from the locker and shrugged into it, walking with steady determination toward the command deck. "How long have we been out?" 412 years, 8 months, 19 days. Mason froze for a fraction of a second. 4 centuries? His family, his planet, everything he had known might be dust by now. But the Retribution was still here. Still his. And right now, that was all that mattered. When he stepped onto the command deck, the ship came alive in a way that felt almost organic. Consoles lit up, status holos bloomed into existence, and the deck hummed with a low vibration as if the ship itself were welcoming him back. "Show me external," Mason ordered. The main display shifted, revealing the chaos outside. He saw the wreckage of a destroyed Ascendancy frigate, the burning husk of another, and a massive dreadnought at the center of it all, clearly the flagship. "Who are they?" he asked. "Ketheri Ascendancy," Echo replied. "Hostile intent confirmed. Attempted override of ship systems logged. Losses sustained, 100% of original cryo crew. You are the last remaining officer. Mason's jaw tightened. His people, the ones he had sworn to protect, gone, slaughtered while he slept. The ship had followed protocol, but that did not make the loss easier to bear. Then it's just us, Mason said quietly. Yes, Captain, the AI replied. He settled into the command chair, its familiar contours wrapping around him like a second skin. For a moment, he just breathed, feeling the raw power of the retribution humming through every plate and conduit. Then his expression hardened. Target the flagship, Mason said. Confirmed, Echo replied. Shall I prepare a second strike? Mason's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Do it! Outside, the retribution shifted again, its weapons cycling with an almost mechanical rhythm. On the Calthus Prime, Tarek's officers scrambled to adapt their failing defenses. They're charging weapons again! Relth cried. Evasive maneuvers! Tarek barked. But the human warship was too fast. Its second volley was even more devastating, a coordinated barrage of plasma batteries and missile salvos that hammered the Ascendancy formation. Two more escorts went up in flames, their hulls splitting apart under the sheer force of the bombardment. Panic began to spread across the Calthus Prime's bridge. This wasn't a battle. This was an execution. Commander, we must withdraw. Relth urged, fear creeping into her tone. Tarek hesitated. To retreat was dishonor, but to stay meant annihilation. Signal the fleet, he said at last, his voice low. All ships, prepare to fall back. The Retribution fired a single railgun slug that passed so close to the Calthus Prime it sheared off one of its engine pods in a shower of molten debris. It hadn't been a miss. It had been a warning. Tarek stared at the display, dread coiling in his chest. Whoever commanded that ship wasn't just fighting, they were sending a message. The battlefield was quiet now, but it was the quiet of a predator stalking wounded prey. The Ketheri fleet hung in disarray, their formation shattered, half their ships reduced to molten wreckage drifting silently through the void. Only the Calthus Prime remained intact, limping on damaged engines, its shields flickering, its hull scarred. And still the human warship Retribution held position, weapons locked, engines burning like the eyes of something ancient and unyielding. On the Calthus Prime's bridge, the silence was suffocating. Crew members stood frozen at their stations, unwilling even to breathe too loudly, as if sound alone might provoke the Leviathan staring them down. Tarek then felt the weight of every life aboard pressing down on his shoulders. He had commanded for decades. He had faced pirate raiders, border wars, even rival empires. But never had he felt so utterly powerless. A chime cut through the silence. Commander, Relth said quietly, her crest lowered. Incoming transmission, from the human vessel. Put it through, Tarek said, his voice heavy. The main view screen flickered, and then a human face appeared. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the dark uniform of some ancient military. His expression was hard, his jaw tight, and his eyes burned with the kind of cold fury that made even seasoned warriors hesitate. This is Captain Mason Hale of the United Nations Space Force Warship Retribution, he said, his voice deep, carrying across the channel like a hammer blow. You boarded my ship. You killed my crew. That was your last mistake. The words landed like a physical strike. Tarek forced himself to speak. Captain Hale, I am Commander Tarek Vin of the Ketheri Ascendancy. We did not know your ship was still active. We sought only to inspect. Spare me, Mason cut him off. You came here to take what wasn't yours. To strip my ship for parts, to dig through the bones of my people. And now you want mercy? Tarek's mandibles twitched, but he said nothing. The human's fury was palpable, and something in his tone made clear that this was no negotiation. You want to understand humanity? Mason continued, his voice growing harder. Then understand this, we do not forgive trespass. We do not forget betrayal. And we do not run. The channel cut abruptly, leaving only silence, a silence that lasted barely a heartbeat before the Retribution unleashed hell. Railguns roared, plasma batteries burned, missile pods streaked fire across the void. The assault was relentless, a symphony of destruction so precise it was almost beautiful. The remaining Ascendancy ships were torn apart one by one, their shields failing, their hulls shattering under the sheer, unstoppable force of human firepower. On the Calthus Prime, the deck shook violently as another blast tore into the aft section, blowing apart entire compartments. "Shields at 9%. Relf shouted, her voice nearly drowned out by the wail of damage klaxons. Tarek gripped the command rail, refusing to give the order to abandon ship. His crew looked to him, their eyes wide with terror, waiting for the call that would decide their fates. But then, suddenly, the Retribution stopped firing. The guns went silent. The missiles ceased. The void was quiet again. On the Calthus Prime's display, the human ship loomed like a dark god, its weapons still trained on them. Another transmission came through. "Commander," Mason's voice rumbled, calm now, but no less dangerous. "I could finish this. I could reduce your ship to slag, scatter your ashes across this system, and no one would ever know you existed." Tarek's mandibles clicked once. He did not doubt the human's words. "But I won't," Mason said, leaning forward slightly. "You're going to leave this sector. You're going to carry this message back to your Ascendancy. Tell them humanity's warships are not relics to be scavenged. Tell them we are not prey. And tell them if they ever come near this ship again, there will be no survivors." The channel cut. For several long, agonizing seconds, no one on the Calthus Prime moved. Then Tarek straightened, his decision made. "All ships," he said, his voice hoarse, "disengage. Full retreat." Their damaged engines flared to life, and slowly, painfully, the Calthus Prime turned away. Tarek allowed himself one final look at the human warship on the display. It still hovered there, silent and watching, its weapons glowing faintly, a predator letting its prey go, not out of mercy, but out of warning. When the Ascendancy dreadnought finally jumped to FTL, the void fell silent again. Inside the Retribution's command deck, Mason sat in his chair, staring at the tactical holo. The stars stretched endlessly before him, and for the first time since waking, he allowed himself a slow breath. "Echo," he said quietly, "status report." "Hostiles have withdrawn," the AI replied. "Tactical analysis predicts they will return with a larger force within 3 to 6 cycles." Mason nodded once. "Let them. We'll be ready." There was a pause. "Captain," Echo said, its voice softer than usual, "would you like to review crew memorial protocols?" Mason closed his eyes for a moment. The faces of his crew, men and women he had served with, laughed with, trusted with his life, flashed through his mind. They were gone now. All of them. "Yes," he said at last. "Bring the memorial online." The lights dimmed, and the names of the fallen appeared across the command deck walls in a shimmering holographic display. Mason stood in silence, his hands clasped behind his back, and gave them a soldier's salute. When the lights returned to normal, his expression was cold again. "Determined." "Set course for Sol," Mason ordered. Course plotted, Echo confirmed. The Retribution turned, its massive engines igniting once more, and surged forward into the void. For 4 centuries, it had slept. Now it was awake. And somewhere, deep in Mason Hale's chest, a fire burned, the fire of a man who had just declared war on an empire. And as the warship disappeared into the darkness, one truth echoed across the stars. The galaxy had just learned what retribution truly meant.